You did not apply for this role. Nobody interviewed you for it. It just became yours, gradually, then completely. This video is about the one who remembers, who follows up, who catches what everyone else forgot, and about how that role gets handed to you without anyone even actually asking you if you wanted it. I'm Sokuntha. I spent over 20 years building a career across international corporate environments, reached director level, and then, quietly, gradually burnt out. I built the stability under pressure method from what I lived and from what I now see in every high-achieving woman I work with. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how that role got handed to you, and you'll walk away with permission to start being as responsible to yourself as you've been to everyone else. So how did that actually happen? It's rarely one moment, it's a pattern, repeated enough times that it hardens into expectation. You stepped up once because you were capable and the situation needed someone to be. Nobody sat you down afterwards and made it official. There was no announcement, just a small, quiet shift. The next time something needed catching, people looked at you first. And you caught it. So they looked at you again and again. Each time, the people around you raised what they expected from you and lowered what they gave back in return. Because you had shown them reliably that you would cover the gap. At no point did anyone decide this was unfair. It just became the shape of things. And here's the part that is the hardest to say out loud. You let that happen. Not because you were weak or didn't notice, but because somewhere inside that pattern, being responsible became the way you proved you belonged. The way you made yourself impossible to question. The way you made sure that your value was never up for debate, because the evidence of it was everywhere in everything you carried. I want to tell you about something that happened when I was business development director. Part of my role was strategic partnership, institutional clients, landmark projects, the kind of commissions that define a company's reputation for years. Which means, on those projects, I was the face of the company in front of the client. And in Cambodia, one type of client I worked with was what we called excellencies. I remember one of them very clearly. He wanted an 18 meters bas-relief carved in sandstone for the back wall of his garden. A piece that was meant to tell a whole story about nature. And he'd been waiting for weeks for a design. And when you're expecting a story carved across 18 meters, you don't expect to receive one small design copied 6 times sitting next to itself. I'd been chasing the design team for weeks, and the day before my meeting with him, that's what they sent me. Approved by their own director, completely out of compliance with the brief. I remember thinking, my God, this team doesn't care. They don't realize what this is going to cost me in front of him. Because face matters enormously. And he was one of the most important clients. And professionally, you never blame your team in front of a client. Even when it's not your fault. Even when they're not technically yours to manage. So I sat with him in his living room, and there were a bay window in front of us looking into the garden the carving was meant to live in. And I showed him the design on my laptop, and I told him, in a voice that sounded completely assured, that we had created one version first just to confirm that we were going in the same direction together. That's why it wasn't yet the full story across 18 meters. That wasn't true. I managed it well. He didn't see anything but composure. But inside, the whole time, I was thinking the same thing. This team doesn't care. And leaving the house on the drive back to the office, that's when the real thoughts surfaced. Why is it always me who has to fix other people's carelessness? It wasn't my job to manage the design team's deadlines. It wasn't my job to push the production team to hit their own commitments. Those were other directors' team, other directors' responsibilities. But the other directors weren't pushing them. It simply weren't their priority. And so, when it landed in front of the client, it landed on me. Not once, repeatedly. And of course, that built resentment, quiet resentment. The kind you can't say really out loud because you're the one who's good in front of the client, the one who handles it. Resentment doesn't fit this identity, but it's there. And it's a signal, not a flow. It means something had been given without anything coming back for long enough that the imbalance can't be ignored anymore. Here's what I want you to see in that. It didn't start with the other directors failing to manage their teams. It started with me walking into that living room and smoothing it over, with every time I protected the relationship instead of naming the gap, with every time I looked composed in a moment that would have every right to be messy. I trained them, not on purpose, but consistently, one smoothed over meeting at a time. And once that training takes hold, something else happens. It's not just that they stop stepping up, it's that you stop expecting them to. Here's what holding this role actually requires of you. Your own priorities, push down the list, again and again. Because the system around you needs you more than you need yourself, apparently. Your own standards, quietly lowered in the part of your life that nobody else is watching. Because all the energy you'd use to hold a standard is already spent holding the line for everyone else. Your own growth stalled, because growth needs space, and there's no space left when you're the one keeping everything moving. And maybe the part that's cost you the most, your own permission to need something. The responsible one does not need. You provide. And the longer that stays true, the more invisible your inner life becomes. Not just to the people around you, to yourself. I want to be very clear about something. This is not me telling you to become irresponsible. This is me asking you to become responsible to yourself with the same rigor you spend years giving everyone else. To hold your own priorities with the same non-negotiable clarity you hold everyone else's deadline. To stop treating your own needs as the thing that you'll get to once everyone else is handled. Because everything else is never handled. You know that better than anyone. The question is not when you'll finally have enough space to put yourself first. The question is whether you're willing to make that space now, before the cost of waiting becomes one that you can't recover from. You did not apply for this role, and you're allowed to resign from the parts of it that were never yours to carry. If this resonated, subscribe. There's more where this came from. Understanding your patterns is the beginning of your power. No one owns you.